Hesitate, and the mountain eats you. The ridge coughs a crack, then another, like bones splitting under sky. Mara said, "Run." Graydon said, "To the lee now." Finn stumbles, small hooves skittering on glare ice. The slope exhales a white plume that stiffens into a charging wall. Duke lowers his head, shouldering past as wind knives the pass. Ash watches from a cornice, a pale ghost stitched to stone. The herd becomes noise and snow and fear, a single frightened creature. Mara said, "Stay on my breath, Finn." The mountain answers with thunder that has no mercy. Ice shears, slabs leap. The valley narrows to one terrible choice. The air goes thin, like the world is holding breath. Mara said, "Answer me." Sound comes back as a roar dragging nails across stone. Graydon said, "Down the notch." The herd pours like beads shaken from a torn pouch. Duke drives, hunger turning fear into muscle. The white wall folds across the valley floor and climbs, tireless. Finn coughs under the crust, a small thud that vanishes in thunder. Ash slides along the rim, not rushing, reading the slope like script. Mara said, "Stay alive, little one." The drift spits shards that draw blood, and still they run. Mountain writes its law, and every hoof is a signature. Wind punches the lungs flat, yet the herd will not yield. Graydon said, "Hold the line." Mara breaks left, carving toward the last place she saw hope. Duke snaps at a yearling that slows him, ruthless without malice. Ash ghosts the skyline, a whisper with claws. The avalanche fractures into tongues, each seeking a life to swallow. Mara said, "I hear you." It might be memory or faith, but it turns her hooves into fire. Finn pushes at ice, learning the price of breath. The slope answers with a groan that promises nothing but weight. The wall meets an old fracture and rears like surf, then collapses with a coffin sound. Mara slams to a halt where the crust thins and rimes sparkle like stars. Graydon said, "2 lengths back. Keep them moving." Duke snorts, froth silvering his lips, but he yields to the command. Ash vanishes behind a veil of powder, then reappears farther on, calculating. Mara said, "I'm here." Her forelegs dig, scooping at ice that fights to stay whole. The cold worms into bone, but love burns hotter than weather. Somewhere under the weight, a muffled knock answers. Silence falls like a predator that has fed. The white field settles, sighing with hidden shifts. Mara said, "Keep breathing." Graydon counts with his eyes, then stops, the herd's number 1 shy. Duke stamps restless, torn between shelter and shame. Ash drifts left, a ripple in pale fur, swallowed by spindrift. Mara's hoof finds a hairline, and steam of a tiny breath fogs the seam. She said, "I have you." The mountain listens without feeling. The act ends not with safety, but with hands on the door of danger. The avalanche's voice fades, but its echo remains inside the herd's bones. Mara said, "He is not gone." Her eyes search the broken white where Finn's cry vanished. Graydon lowers his head, lines etched deep in his horns. He said, "The mountain does not return what it takes." Duke stamps, flanks steaming, restless for shelter. Ash shadows above, her silhouette thin as breath against storm clouds. Mara presses her chest to the crust, heat spilling into the ice. She whispers, "He breathes. I will not let him die." The herd tightens, fear heavy as chains. The storm pauses, as if listening. Graydon said, "We move, or the herd starves." His breath rises in ragged plumes. "You." Mara rises, shoulders quivering. She said, "You may leave." "I will not." Duke snarls a low rumble, driven by hunger, his eyes fixed on barren slopes. Ash slips behind broken rock, her body flowing like smoke. Finn coughs under the crust, muffled but alive. Mara's heart jolts, hooves carving deeper. She said, "Did you hear it?" Graydon closes his eyes, weighing duty against love. The herd shifts, uneasy. The mountain looms, its silence heavier than any command. The herd forms a circle, instinct bound tighter than choice. Graydon said, "If we linger, more will fall." His voice is iron wrapped in sorrow. Mara lowers her horns to the crust, pounding. She said, "His voice calls me. I will answer." Duke huffs, swinging his head, impatience tearing at discipline. Ash crouches, eyes glinting, her breath steady. The air tastes of saltless tears. Finn scrapes from beneath, each sound fragile but fierce. Mara said, "You see, he fights." The herd listens, and for a heartbeat, their fear bends to hope. Mara presses ear to the ice, heartbeat sensing to Finn's struggle. She whispers, "Do not sleep." Graydon steps forward, shadowing her flank. He said, "Then we dig, but the herd must not scatter." Duke tosses his head, steam rising, torn between loyalty and hunger. Ash descends, weaving closer to scent the desperation. The crust groans, sharp as breaking glass. Finn knocks again, softer now. Mara said, "Stay, I come." Graydon plants hooves, guiding others to shield her. For a fleeting moment, family outweighs fear, and love becomes law. The wind sharpens, carrying scent of stone and blood. Mara claws until hooves crack, ice biting deeper. Graydon murmurs, "We will give all we have." Duke growls, "And if more snow comes?" The herd trembles, ghosts caught between survival and loyalty. Ash pauses, muscles coiled, her cubs waiting in the dark somewhere beyond. Finn's tiny cough pushes through frost like a flare. Mara said, "That is enough to keep me alive." The mountain groans again, warning. Still, the herd waits, caught between destiny and defiance, in silence that cuts sharper than storm. Night presses harder, wind slicing through bone. The herd staggers, ribs showing like shadows of famine. Graydon said, "Hunger will take us before the mountain does." His voice is gravel, steady, but tired. Mara ignores him, hooves raw and bleeding, her breath steaming as she claws at the crust. She whispers, "Finn still fights. I feel him." Duke paces, his muscles twitching, eyes flashing like fire from a furnace. He snarls, torn between survival and surrender. Above, Ash prowls the ridge, her body woven into darkness, her breath clouds glimmering in moonlight. Finn coughs beneath the snow, a muffled echo weak but alive. Mara said, "One more breath. That is enough." The mountain rumbles, its silence heavier than thunder. The storm thickens again, white sheets spinning like knives. Graydon lowers his massive head, cutting through gale with sheer weight. He said, "Shelter lies beyond the ridge." His tone is heavy, filled with warning. Mara trembles but digs harder, her muzzle pressed into snow. She said, "Shelter means nothing if my son lies cold." Duke steps into her path, horns angled, his body alive with restless fury. Hunger gnaws at his veins like fire. The herd splinters, frightened by his rage, uncertain where to follow. Ash crouches closer, amber eyes watching, her body dripping tension like oil. From beneath the crust, Finn knocks weakly, barely a whisper. Mara cries, "Did you hear him?" The gale screams louder, burying voices under ice. Dawn tears open the clouds, a pale stripe of gold searing across ice. The herd stumbles hollow-eyed, bones visible beneath thin coats. Graydon said, "Another night will kill us." His words fall heavy, as final as stones. Mara's legs shake, but she doesn't stop. She whispers, "Finn breathes. That is all that matters." Duke thrashes at the snow, scattering shards in rage, hunger boiling his veins. Ash balances on a high spur, her tail flicking, her ears fixed to the sound of weakness. Beneath the ice, Finn coughs again, a small sound that splinters silence. Mara stiffens, renewed fire in her eyes. She said, "He is not gone." The herd groans, caught between despair and a fragile thread of hope. The cliffs echo like drums. The mountain shifts again, a thunderous crack racing through the slope. Graydon warns, another fall, and none survive. His voice shakes though his body stands firm. Mara roars back, then bury me beside him. Duke lunges, horns smashing against hers, shards of ice exploding like glass. The herd scatters, terror breaking them into fragments. Ash edges closer, muscles rippling, torn between instinct and hesitation. Finn gasps faintly from beneath, his sound fragile, lost in chaos. Mara slams harder, blood streaking the crust. Graydon wedges between them, horns wide as shields. He said, "If we fight, the mountain has already won." Silence follows, heavy and crushing, as if the world itself holds its breath. The storm stops suddenly, leaving a silence that cuts like steel. Mara lowers her muzzle, whispering, "I am here." Her chest heaves, but her voice steadies with fire. Finn coughs faintly, his breath fog curling beneath thin ice. Graydon exhales, his breath drifting like smoke. He said, "Then we dig. All of us." Duke snorts, stepping away, but his body wavers with uncertainty. Ash freezes, amber eyes narrowed, her hunger breaking against confusion. The herd regroups, shivering but drawn together by fragile hope. The mountain towers above, indifferent, silent, its face etched with scars of Avalanche's past. In the hush, one truth carves itself into the snow. Love claws deeper than fear, even when the storm waits to strike again. The mountain looms in silence, but silence here is never peace. Beneath the crust, lines of fire wait, invisible to eyes blinded by snow. Graydon said, "The fault runs deeper than the avalanche." His voice carries the weight of winters survived. Mara presses her muzzle hard into the fissure, every breath a prayer. She whispers, "Finn is not lost, he waits." Ash creeps nearer, her shadow lengthening across the ridge, not with hunger alone, but with fear for her own cubs hidden below. The predator's truth and the mother's truth entwine, as if the mountain reveals that survival is not cruel, but shared. Duke stomps, scattering shards, his eyes hard with rivalry, refusing this revelation. Yet the herd senses the shift. The danger is no longer beast against beast, but all of them against the endless, crushing weight. The snow groans like an old god shifting in sleep, and the hidden truth rises with the sound. Graydon's gaze follows the glowing fissure like a map carved by the mountain itself. He murmurs, "This break does not bury, it opens." His words settle in the cold air like sparks. Mara rises, her flanks trembling, but her eyes blazing. She said, "Then it is a path, and we will follow it." Ash slinks closer, her body fluid as smoke, tail curling tight as though guarding unseen life. Duke growls, his voice thick with suspicion, but even he cannot ignore the hum rising from the earth. The herd leans inward, desperation turning to hope, fragile yet alive. From beneath, Finn coughs, the sound traveling through the fissure like a heartbeat striking stone. The air vibrates with it, stronger than fear. Mara whispers, "I hear you." For the first time since the avalanche fell, her voice does not tremble. The hidden truth has turned despair into dangerous faith. Ash descends in silence, her paws whispering over stone and snow. Mara lowers her horns, breath ragged, ready to fight. But Ash stops short, ears pulled back, her amber eyes flashing with something older than hunger, fear. Graydon speaks, his voice quiet as falling flakes. "She hunts for her own." The words cut through the herd sharper than wind. They see it now, the curve of Ash's body, protective, the hesitation in her steps. Duke snarls, horns slicing the air, refusing this truth. Yet Mara looks and sees herself, another mother fighting a battle against cold, starvation, and inevitability. She whispers, "We are the same." The herd shifts uneasily, struggling to accept predator as mirror. The mountain does not pause, snow creaks, warning of more collapse. Between them, the revelation hangs heavy, Survival here has no enemy but the storm itself. The air stills, every sound magnified. Finn's muffled cry breaks the hush, thin but undeniable. Mara bellows, "Hold on, I come." Her body shudders with rage and devotion. Ash lowers her head, not to strike, but to acknowledge the fight of another parent. Graydon plants himself between Mara and Duke, voice steady as stone. He said, "The mountain spares nothing, but it reveals its laws." Duke trembles, torn between defiance and reluctant awe, his hunger dulled by a truth he cannot kill. The herd breathes together, fear reshaped into unity. The predator does not lunge, the prey does not scatter. A balance forms in the cold, fragile but real. Above them, the ridge cracks louder, warning that the avalanche's second heart is about to beat. Yet in that fragile moment, they understand, their survival depends not on division, but on shared defiance. The truth spreads like fire through frost. None survive alone. Mara digs harder, her hooves split and bleeding, but strength blazing in her frame. Graydon steadies the herd, his horns angled wide, guiding their trembling bodies to shield her flank. Duke steps aside, eyes burning, his rivalry cooled by something deeper than pride. Ash lingers on the edge, gaze fixed on the fisher, her breath tight with the memory of her own cubs hidden in hunger's shadow. From beneath the crust, Finn gasps, weaker yet defiant, and the sound carries through them all. Mara whispers, "We are not finished." The mountain growls, a deeper crack tearing its silence, a reminder that mercy is not its language. Yet in the fracture's glow, hope shines sharp and dangerous. The hidden truth is carved into their hearts. Survival is never a solitary act, but a bond of blood, risk, and sacrifice. The mountain holds its breath, then roars again. Cracks split wide, snow shifting like liquid stone. Mara slams her hooves against the fissure, screaming, "I will not leave you." Her chest heaves, blood soaking the snow beneath her. Graydon bellows, "Brace the herd." His voice rumbles like thunder, pulling them into a shielded arc. Duke charges, horns lowered, fury surging as he collides with Mara, their clash exploding in shards. Ash leaps from her perch, her body a streak of pale fire, landing between chaos and death. Finn gasps under the crust, breath rattling thin but fierce. The avalanche begins to slide again, the slope trembling as though alive. Every heartbeat becomes a countdown, every breath a fight against the storm's final strike. The herd scatters as the slope collapses in slow thunder. Mara drives forward, muscles trembling, every strike at the ice a cry of defiance. Graydon shouts, "Hold your ground!" His old frame braces against shifting snow, buying seconds with his weight. Duke's rage cools, but hunger twists him. He hurls himself at the fissure, breaking more ice beside Mara. Ash snarls not at them but at the avalanche, her body flared against the snow's surge. Beneath, Finn's hoof beats weakly, faint thuds echoing like fragile drums. Mara whispers, "I feel you." The world narrows to one desperate fight. Horns, hooves, claws, and broken will clashing against the weight of eternity. The avalanche surges like a beast unleashed. Snow tears from cliffs, roaring down with no mercy. Mara roars louder, her body trembling but unbroken. "Breathe, my son," she cries, her voice breaking stone. Graydon pushes the herd into a hollow, shielding them with his body. Duke's horns crack ice slabs apart, his fury turned into strength. Ash lashes her tail, claws slicing into snow as she digs toward the same fissure. Predator and prey, rivals and enemies fight together against a greater death. Finn gasps again, thin but piercing, cutting through the avalanche's roar. The air burns with frost and blood, and still they dig, refusing the law of silence. The fissure splinters wide, glowing faint in icy light. Mara digs until her hooves split, blood streaking the crust. She roars, "Come back to me!" Finn's muzzle bursts through, gasping for air, eyes wide with terror and life. The herd cries, their fear turning to awe. Graydon bellows, pulling others back from the new fracture, but his footing slips. He groans, "Stay clear." Duke lunges to steady him, but the slab shifts again. Ash leaps to higher ground, her eyes fixed not on prey, but on survival itself. The avalanche's second wave begins to fall, a wall of white ready to bury them all. Time slows, every breath counted, every heartbeat louder than thunder. Snow collapses again, a wave swallowing sound. Mara clamps her muzzle over Finn's head, dragging him free with a cry that splits the storm. Graydon braces, his body holding the avalanche back, his roar echoing through stone. Duke shoves against the shifting mass, his strength no longer for rivalry, but for survival. Ash pivots, her form streaking across falling snow, vanishing into white, her own battle waiting. Finn coughs, a weak but living sound, pressed against Mara's chest. The mountain takes Graydon, the elder swallowed as the slope devours him. His last bellow is not of fear but of triumph. The avalanche passes, leaving silence broken only by Finn's fragile breathing. The climax ends not with victory, but with survival clawed from death. The storm drifts into silence, leaving broken snowfields glittering under a dull sky. Mara cradles Finn close, her breath shaking but steady. She whispers, "You breathe, and that is enough." Graydon's voice no longer fills the air. His sacrifice lingers like an echo carved into stone. Duke stands apart, chest heaving, eyes turned down, his rivalry burned into ash by what he has seen. Ash lingers on the ridge, her pale form still and watchful, her hunger silenced by recognition. The herd stares at the scar where the avalanche claimed their elder. The mountain speaks only in silence, and its verdict is final. The herd gathers slowly, drawn into Mara's circle. She stands taller than before, her flanks scarred but her eyes unbroken. Finn coughs weakly, his breath fogging into the frozen air. Graydon's absence leaves the air hollow, yet his lessons echo in every step they take. Duke approaches, his head lowered, not in defeat but in uneasy respect. Mara meets his gaze, saying nothing, her silence sharper than horns. Ash turns her head toward the cliffs where her cubs wait, a mother's bond pulling her away. For a moment, predator and prey share one truth. Each fights not for power, but for life carried forward. The wind softens, carrying only the faint crackle of settling snow. Mara whispers, "He lives because we refuse to let go." Her words are more to herself than to the herd. Finn's eyes blink open, wide and fragile, his chest fluttering like a bird. Duke watches, torn by memory of his own youth when hunger spared nothing. Graydon's shadow feels near, a weight of guidance pressing on their hearts. Ash slips into the fog, her paws silent, her figure dissolving like breath. Predator leaves prey, not by mercy, but by the unspoken pact of survival. The mountain watches, its face carved eternal, unmoved by their struggle. The herd begins to move, each step carved with exhaustion, but also defiance. Mara leads, her body bent but unyielding, Finn trembling against her. Duke follows, his strength no longer pressed against her but behind, a shield against the empty space Graydon left. Ash is gone, her trail swallowed by storm, yet her memory lingers in every silent pawprint. The herd's hooves drum softly, a rhythm that echoes Graydon's final command. Move, endure, survive. Mara lifts her head toward the jagged horizon, whispering, "Your blood guides us." The snow beneath their steps crunches with weight, but their path now feels chosen. Evening bleeds across the peaks, painting scars of avalanche in crimson light. Mara pauses, pressing Finn closer, his breath faint but steady. The herd settles in silence, their eyes turned toward the scarred slope where Graydon fell. Duke lowers his head, no longer rival, but silent witness. Ash's cry echoes faintly across the cliffs, a mother's call to unseen young, reminding them all that survival is shared across predator and prey. Mara whispers, "The mountain remembers, but so will we." The silence closes again, not empty but filled with the weight of all they lost and all they kept alive. Dawn creeps across the peaks, slow and unforgiving. The avalanche scar glows faintly under pale fire, a wound carved into the mountain. Mara lifts her head, Finn trembling against her chest, alive but frail. The herd stands in silence, each frame etched with exhaustion and survival. Duke lingers close, no longer challenger, but shadowing her with quiet vigilance. Ash is gone, yet her presence lingers in paw prints pressed into the snow, a trail of truth leading to her hidden cubs. Graydon's absence is an open hollow in the herd's circle, his memory pressing into every step they take. The silence does not comfort, it binds heavy with what they lost. The herd moves slowly across the scar, hooves sinking into crust that still groans under weight. Mara leads, her stride broken but fierce. Finn coughs, breath misting weak, but his eyes flicker open wider now. Duke follows, his horns lowered not in defiance, but in quiet strength. The herd no longer looks to Graydon, but his spirit presses at their backs. Ash's cry echoes faintly from the cliffs, the sound sharp, both predator and mother calling into the frozen air. Mara whispers, "We move because he taught us to." The wind carries the words into the emptiness, binding herd and mountain alike in remembrance. The day sharpens into cold clarity, each step echoing against stone. The herd climbs higher, their rhythm uneven, yet their line unbroken. Mara presses forward, her body trembling, but her will unbent. Finn leans into her warmth, his small breaths a fragile drum. Duke lingers just behind, his strength turned from rival to guardian. The herd tightens around them, filling the gap left by Graydon. Ash vanishes into shadow, her cubs waiting unseen, her path forever apart yet strangely parallel. Mara whispers, "The mountain did not forgive, but we endure." The words settle, harsh and honest, like frost carving stone. As the sun dips, crimson streaks bleed across the sky. The herd halts on a ridge, overlooking valleys drowned in shadow. Mara stands tall, Finn trembling but breathing steadily against her. Duke lowers his head, his body still, listening to the silence. The herd breathes as one, their eyes reflecting the avalanche scar behind them. Ash's shape flickers once on a distant outcrop, then melts into dusk. Graydon's sacrifice lingers in memory, his absence reshaping them. Mara whispers, "We walk because he fell." The valley does not answer, but the echo carries in their bones. Survival is not mercy, it is inheritance. Night falls swift, cloaking peaks in endless black. The herd settles in silence, their breath rising like smoke. Mara curls around Finn, his fragile warmth pressed against her. The last sound is his weak cough turning into steady breath. Duke stands sentinel, horns carved against stars, no longer rival but guardian. Ashley's call fades into nothing, her cubs waiting far away. The mountain looms, silent and absolute, its scar a reminder of what was lost and what survived. Mara whispers, "The peak remembers, it does not forgive." The words hang in the night like stone. The echo lingers long after breath, leaving silence heavier than the storm.